It was late October when I took a delivery job with a trucking company based out of Elk Bend, Idaho, a town so small you could blink and miss it. I'd just turned 26, and my last job at the lumber mill had shut down a month earlier. Bills were stacking up, and I didn't have the luxury of being picky. The job seemed simple. I'd assist a truck driver named Warren Halbrook delivering construction equipment from Idaho to a site near Gallup, New Mexico. It was a 2-day drive, and the company promised a good bonus if we made it on time. Warren was a quiet man in his late 50s with deep lines etched across his face like the bark of a dry tree. He didn't talk much, but something about him felt off from the start. He never smiled, and his eyes rarely blinked. I chalked it up to stress or age. But I noticed other things too, how he'd hum old hymns under his breath, sometimes for hours, and how he refused to drive after midnight. He told me, "There's more than bad drivers out on the road after 12. At first, I laughed it off. We started the trip on a cold, grey Thursday morning. Rain followed us from Elk Bend, and by the time we crossed into Utah, it had turned into a downpour. The windshield wipers struggled against it, making a sound that started to grate on my nerves. Around 9 p.m., somewhere near the border of Arizona, we hit a line of flashing lights. A major accident blocked the main highway. Emergency crews redirected traffic, and Warren cursed under his breath. "They're sending us through the Pine Bluffs forest," he said. I pulled out my phone to check the route. The detour added 2 hours. I could see Warren didn't like the idea, but he didn't argue with the highway patrol. We turned onto a narrow road lined with thick trees. The pavement turned rough and cracked, and no other vehicles were in sight. The rain came down even harder, blurring the edges of everything. Our headlights barely cut through the dark. About 30 minutes into the forest road, I started to feel strange. The temperature inside the cab dropped suddenly, even though the heater ran full blast. My fingers went cold. I rubbed my hands together and glanced at Warren. He gripped the wheel tighter than before. His eyes didn't blink, just like earlier, but now he looked tense, focused, but not on the road. More like he was listening for something. I tried to break the silence. "You okay?" He nodded once, slowly. "Just stay alert." His voice came out quieter than usual. That's when I noticed something weird. He had stopped humming. The road twisted deeper into the woods, and the forest thickened around us. Our headlights reflected off fog and wet leaves. I stared out the side window, trying to shake off the chill crawling up my spine. Then I saw something. It stood at the edge of the trees, maybe 30 feet from the road. A figure. Thin. Pale. No clothes. No face. Just standing still, as if it had been watching us. I jerked back and yelled, "Did you see that?" Warren didn't answer. He just kept driving. "I saw something, standing in the trees." "I know," he said. My heart dropped. "What do you mean? You know? They follow sometimes. Don't look at them again." I stared at him. "What are you talking about? Who follows?" He didn't respond. His knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. The air cab felt heavy. My chest tightened, like the pressure before a thunderstorm, but worse. Something about that forest didn't feel right. The trees looked wrong, twisted, like they leaned in toward the road. I leaned forward and scanned the trees on my side again. This time, I saw more than one figure. They stood in a line between the trees, pale, still watching. I pulled my eyes away and grabbed Warren's arm. "We need to turn around. We can't stay on this road." "No," he shouted. "If we stop and turn around, they will come closer." I could hear the fear in his voice now, though he tried to hide it. He didn't sound like a man anymore. He sounded like a boy trying not to cry. Then the truck slowed. "What are you doing?" I shouted. "Road's washed out ahead. We have to stop." He brought the truck to a halt in front of a shallow ditch. Muddy water filled the ditch. Trees closed in on both sides, and the rain beat down like it wanted to crush us. Warren turned to me. "Stay inside, no matter what you hear." My throat tightened. "What do you mean?" "If they knock, don't open the door, don't speak, don't even look at them." He opened his door and stepped out into the rain. "Wait! What are you doing?" "Gotta clear the ditch." He closed the door behind him. I sat there alone, heart pounding. I could barely see through the rain. Warren's figure moved in the headlights, dragging branches out of the road. Then I heard it. A knock. Not on the window, not on the door. It came from the roof of the cab. A soft, slow knock, like fingernails tapping. My body froze. Every hair on my neck stood up. I stared straight ahead, not daring to move. The knocking came again, then slid across the roof. Something dragged its fingers into the metal. I clenched my jaw and gripped the seat. Then silence. Suddenly I saw Warren running back toward the truck. He was soaked and wild-eyed. He flung the door open and shouted, "Don't look behind us!" He jumped in and slammed the door shut. The truck roared forward. Mud flew up around the tires. "What is it? What's happening?" I cried. "I told you. They follow. They feed on fear. You can't show them any." "What are they?" He didn't answer. The forest road twisted one last time before we burst out onto a wider stretch of pavement. I looked behind us, but only saw shadows. The rain eased a little. Not much, but enough to breathe again. We drove in silence for the next hour until we reached a gas station near the edge of Holbrook, Arizona. Warren parked the truck, got out, and lit a cigarette with shaking hands. I stood next to him, trying to make sense of it all. "What are they?" I asked again. He blew smoke through his nose and said, "I don't know, but I've seen them before. First time was in 1992. Same forest, same road. Lost my last partner out there." I didn't ask more. I didn't want to know. I never took another job with that company. I quit the next morning and took a bus back home. Sometimes when I'm driving at night and the rain starts falling hard, I still hear that slow tapping on the roof. And sometimes I wonder if I ever really left that forest, or if something followed me out. So if you ever find yourself on a dark forest road in the rain, and your driver tells you not to look outside, don't. Not everything in the woods wants to stay hidden. I still remember that night. Like it just happened yesterday. I can't forget it, even if I tried. I was the assistant to a long-haul truck driver named Silas Dawn. Silas had been driving rigs for nearly 20 years, always calm, always alert. But that night, even he couldn't explain what we saw, what we felt. We were on a delivery run through southern Texas, headed toward the small town of Calaveras Bluff. The route took us through home via highway, a long, empty stretch of road that cuts through fields and woods for miles. It's not on most maps anymore. Locals say it's cursed. I never paid attention to stories like that. Not until that night. It was just after 2:30 in the morning. The highway was pitch black, not a single streetlight in sight. The only thing lighting the road ahead was the high beam of our truck, stretching far down the dark pavement like a tunnel of fog and shadows. Inside the cabin, it was quiet. Silas was at the wheel and I sat beside him, trying to keep my eyes open. We were both running low on sleep, but we had to push through the night. I kept sipping on cold coffee, hoping it would help. It didn't. Then it happened. Just as we rounded a bend, the high beams caught something ahead. An old woman. She was slowly crossing the road, hunched over, her thin body wrapped in a shawl. Her white hair fluttered in the wind. She looked fragile, like she didn't belong out there at all. Silas gasped and yanked the steering wheel to the right. I felt the truck lurch and slam into the brakes. The rig screeched loud enough to wake the dead. We both braced ourselves, thinking we had hit her. The truck stopped hard, right on the edge of the road. My heart pounded so loud, I thought I might pass out. I looked at Silas. His face had gone pale. Neither of us said a word for a second. Then we jumped out of the truck and ran to the front. There was nothing. No body, no blood, no broken glass, no sign of anyone being hit. Just the silence of the dark highway and the cold air swirling around us. Silas walked around with a flashlight, calling out, "Ma'am, are you all right? Hello?" But there was no reply. I stared into the darkness beyond the beam of our headlights. Trees lined the road. Everything else was still, too still. That's when I started to feel it. Something wrong. The air felt heavy, like something unseen was watching us, like we had stepped into a place we shouldn't be. Silas looked at me. "You saw her too, right?" I nodded. Yeah, clear as day. We climbed back into the truck. Silas tried to start the engine. Nothing, just a dull click. He tried again, still nothing. That's when the radio, which had been dead quiet the whole time, crackled on by itself. A slow, deep static sound hissed through the speakers, followed by what sounded like a whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but I swear it sounded like a woman laughing softly. Silas punched the power button, but the radio wouldn't turn off. Then the lights in the cabin started flickering. That's when I truly got scared. I looked out the window and saw something move in the side mirror, just for a split second. A shadow, tall and thin, standing just behind the trailer. I turned quickly to look out the back window, but nothing was there. Silas tried the ignition again. This time the truck roared back to life. We didn't waste a second. He slammed the pedal, and we peeled off down the road, the tires screeching as we sped away from whatever we had just experienced. But the nightmare wasn't over. As we drove, the high beams kept flickering. Sometimes they showed the road ahead and sometimes they didn't. The radio kept whispering, even though it had no signal. And the worst part, every so often, we would see the same old woman standing by the side of the road, or in the middle of it, staring at us as we flew past. At one point, Silas screamed and swerved again. He said he saw her crawling right in front of the truck, dragging herself across the road. I didn't see that one, but I did feel the cold again, ice cold, like someone opened a freezer inside the cab. My breath fogged up the window. In Texas, in May, we kept driving, we didn't speak. We just wanted the night to end. And then, something tapped on the back of the cabin. 3 slow, hard knocks. Tap, tap, tap. We both froze. Silas didn't stop the truck. He just kept going, knuckles white on the steering wheel. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The knocking didn't come again, but I knew something was with us. It didn't want us there. Or maybe it did. It wasn't until the first light of dawn cracked through the trees that everything suddenly stopped. The radio went silent. The cabin lights stopped flickering. The cold lifted, the high beams worked normally again, and the road felt normal. We didn't say a word until we reached Calaveras Bluff 2 hours later. When we got to the depot, Silas parked the truck and looked at me. "You don't talk about that night," he said. "Not to anyone." I nodded, but I couldn't keep that promise forever, not after what I learned. Later that week, I asked around the town. I found a man named Abel Sorrell, who had lived near Homeview Highway his whole life. When I mentioned the old woman, his face went pale. He told me about a woman named Hattie Griggs. She was hit by a truck on that same highway in the 1960s. They said it was an accident. The driver claimed he swerved, but still stuck her. Locals say she hunts the road now, appearing to tired or distracted drivers. Sometimes she appears real, sometimes she just lingers in the shadow. They say if you see her, Abel told me, it means she's warning you. But if you hit her, it means she's coming with you. I asked him what that meant. He just looked down and whispered, "She doesn't always let people leave." I've never gone back to Homeview Highway. Silas quit trucking a few months later. Noon really knows why, but I do. He still won't talk about it. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I hear the faint sound of tap, 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 and I know she remembers. It was the kind of rain that blurred everything. Water pounded the windshield like it had a personal grudge against the glass. I had both hands tight on the steering wheel of my old red Peterbilt, crawling along the winding road through the Tanager Hill forest. The storm had started in the afternoon, and by sunset it had turned into something mean. I was soaked from just checking my tires an hour ago. My name's Carson Ridge. I've been driving trucks for over 18 years, hauling freight from the deep valleys of Oregon to the upper corners of Idaho. But that evening, that night on Tanager Hill, was something I wish I could erase from my memory. My assistant, Roy, had taken off on a long vacation to visit his mother in Vermont, said he needed a break. Lucky him. I never liked driving alone, but freight doesn't wait, and I had a delivery deadline to meet in Howler's Bend, a small town up north. The shortest way there was through Tanager Hill, but with the rain causing rock slides, The main road was closed off. Big signs with orange warnings were posted near the blockade. I pulled up, heart sinking. I knew of another road that ran through the hill, Hollow Bend Trail. It was steep, narrow, and old as hell. Hardly used, most drivers avoided it. They said it was cursed, that strange things happened out there. A few guys from the yard swore they saw a body hanging from a tree on one of the turns, a decomposed corpse swagging like a pendulum in the wind. One guy even claimed the thing looked at him, looked through him. I always laughed at those stories. Until that night. I waited there in the rain, staring at the map on my phone. There was no signal, not even a bar. I had two choices: turn back and miss my delivery or take Hollow Bend. I cursed under my breath and took the turn. At first it wasn't too bad, just a wet, slippery ride on an unmarked trail. The forest was thick on both sides, trees like crooked fingers reaching in. The wipers groaned as they tried to keep up with the downpour. I turned on the radio to cut the silence, found some old rock station that played half static, half Elvis. 2 hours went by. Nothing happens. No hanging body, no ghosts. Just me and the road. And the sun had long disappeared behind the clouds. Night wrapped around the truck like a thick blanket, and the rain didn't let up. I started to think I had passed through the haunted part. Maybe those old truckers made up the stories just to scare the greenhorns, but I was wrong. I hadn't passed the cursed stretch, I had just entered it. The radio started to crackle hard, more static, less Elvis. Then it went silent, dead air. I reached over and tapped the knob. Nothing. I checked my phone again, still no signal. The forest seemed to thicken, trees crowding closer, their branches brushing the side mirrors. And then, the turn came. A sharp, almost blind curve. My headlights cut through the rain, and that's when I saw it. A massive tree stood right at the bend, just like the others had described. Its branches hung heavy, almost touching the road. And from one of them, there it was, a body, swinging slowly in the wind. It wasn't fresh, not even close. Skin like grey paper clung to bone. The clothes were ripped and rotting. Long, dark hair clung to the skull. It was a woman. Her eyes, they were still there, and they were open. I slammed the brakes. The truck jerked forward and stopped inches from the bend. I stared, heart racing. Her body twisted in the wind, but her head didn't move. Her face was locked in my direction. Her eyes, white, sunken, and awful, were staring straight into the cab. I blinked. She was gone. I gasped, looked again. Still gone. I thought I imagined it. Maybe my eyes played tricks on me from the stress, the rain, the stories. I shook my head and pressed on the gas. That's when the radio came back on. But it wasn't Elvis this time, it was a voice. Whispering, not in English. Something else. Some strange, clicking language that sounded like insects crawling over each other. I turned the knob off. The voice kept talking. The radio was off, but the whisper didn't stop. Then the cold came. A sudden, bitter cold poured into the cab like someone had opened a freezer behind me. I looked at the vents. Nothing but air. I looked in the side mirror. That was the moment I stopped breathing. She was there, on the side of the truck, clinging to the mirror. Her face was inches from the glass. Her mouth was open, teeth broken and black. One eye was missing, the other locked with mine. I screamed. I yanked the wheel hard, nearly drove the truck off the edge. The tires skidded in the mud. The engine groaned. I don't know how I managed to stay on the road. I was sweating, shaking, eyes wild. I floored the gas. The truck roared up the hill. But she wasn't done. Every mirror showed her face. No matter which one I looked at, she was there. Even the rear-view mirror, the one I always used to check my load. She was inside the trailer staring back at me. I turned the mirrors away. I didn't want to see anymore. I kept driving, 10 minutes, maybe 20. But then the road changed. It looped back. I hit the same curve again, the same tree, the same branch, the same woman hanging there. I hadn't gone forward. I was trapped. I screamed, slammed the dashboard, turned the wheel around, tried to go back the way I came, but I passed the tree again, and again. I was stuck in some horrible loop, a twisted version of that road. That's when the whispers came back. This time inside the cab. I turned slowly. She sat in the passenger seat, like she'd always been there. Her head tilted, that one awful eye fixed on me. Then she spoke. 3 words. "I remember you." Her voice was dry, like leaves rustling in the wind. I slammed the door open and jumped out. Rain pelted me. I fell hard on the wet dirt, scrambled up and ran. I didn't know where, just away from the truck. But the forest, it changed. I ran in circles. Same trees, same curve, same truck. Everywhere I turned, she was there, standing, swinging, watching. I must have blacked out. When I woke, it was morning. The rain had stopped. I was inside the truck, in the driver's seat. The radio played soft country music. The mirrors were clean. No body, no tree, no woman. I started the truck and drove. This time the road didn't loop. I reached Howler's Bend just after noon, delivered the freight. Didn't say a word to anyone. That was 6 months ago. I haven't driven through Tanager Hill since. Sometimes I see her in dreams. Sometimes I hear the whispers through my phone, even when it's off. But the worst part? A few days ago, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photograph of my truck on the curve, with the woman hanging from the tree, and a note. 4 words this time. "You never left, Carson."